6 straight days.
Yeah.
At this point, projected to be 88 degrees or above. That's a wonderful tie that you have on there, Craig. I really like that design as well as the color scheme. Is there
Yes,
anything?
it's green. It's the only green I can wear. Today
That's
was a green
green?
day.
Sarah, is that green? I was
That
getting
is
more of a
dark
gold and
green.
black
It's
type
there.
of deal.
It's dark green.
Is that right?
Yeah, if you wear
Confirmed.
light green and you work in front of the green screen, you disappear. So that's a consideration.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, just a fun fact, because I think we have like another quick minute here. Today, okay, we had on the weather desk that this is an anniversary of them kind of configuring how they name tropical systems. Remember, originally it was kind of like name a storm by where it hit the area. That was kind of after the fact. As we progressed, they started using the phonetic alphabet, alpha, Abel, Beta, Charlie, all that stuff. Then they went to all women's names. There was a lot of pushback back in the 50s and 60s. Little sexist back in the day it was. So they said, okay, we're going to go boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. If you look at the names for the 2026 Atlantic storms, we start off with Arthur, guy's name. Go to Bertha, female name. Back to Cristobal, then Dolly. It goes back and forth, back and forth. They also take on an international flair. So they're not all just American names. They appeal across the region.
I never could have guessed that there was such a deep history of the naming of storms. I'm surprised that it didn't just become number combinations from very early on. We ascribe the humanity to them. Yeah.
But historically, we've had so many that it gets confusing. So, yeah, that was part of the kind of evolution of it. But now we remembered the name and the year.
Okay, well, we certainly remember the name Craig Moeller because he always brings the heat when he comes into the studio. I'm going to remember that fact about high-pressure systems. Please quiz me again in the future. Okay.
Got it.
We're going to do a quick commercial break here. When we get back, we do have some live events that are setting up that we want to explore. There's really a lot to cover today in general coming up on Live Impact News. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. We are still reeling here from what we heard from Craig Moeller during that forecast. Starting this weekend, starting late this week really, those 6 straight days with projected highs of 88 degrees or above and a lot of sunshine on that 7-day as well. So it is really ramping up here in a big way as we sort of careen towards June 1st. And Memorial Day weekend and that real advent of summer. You can feel it out there after a very up and down April with some hot stretches and some dry stretches and everything in between, some cold moments. We are now really, really into the summer windup. Okay, let's transition now. Let's start going over some of these events that we have. You're going to see two different events on your screen here. Up at the very top, you see a House Oversight Committee, Democrats specifically from the House Oversight Committee, who are holding a field hearing in Palm Beach, Florida, regarding Jeffrey Epstein. That is live right now. That is where we are headed in just a brief moment. But we want to also prep you for what's to come here, as the Artemis II crew will be in Washington, D.C. at Capitol Hill, at this very room right here. A Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation is hosting that Artemis II crew as they continue sort of their, I guess, like return tour, if you will, after that history-making trip around the moon. So we're keeping an eye on that. First, we're going to go out to this field hearing regarding Jeffrey Epstein, featuring Democrats from the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee. Let's listen in live now. Did I say that wrong? I did say that wrong, didn't I, Sarah? Sarah is always keeping me on my toes. These are Democrats from the House Oversight Committee holding a field hearing in Palm Beach. Shout out super producer Sarah Calloway for the heads up there. Let's listen in live right now.
Long overdue. Myself and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, we have been asking for a hearing for many years here, for many reasons I won't go into, but we're here today because it is right here, folks, right here in Palm Beach County, more than 20 years ago, that the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific crimes were first denied justice with devastating results. In 2005, the Palm Beach Police Department, led by then Chief Michael Ryder, I'm giving him a shout out, a good guy, he uncovered a deeply disturbing pattern of predatory sexual abuse by Jeffrey Epstein and his associates, targeting women, of course, and young girls, many recruited from our local high schools right here in Palm Beach County. The police did their job. They listened to the survivors. They built a serious case. Then they brought it to then State Attorney Barry Krischer. I call his name because his succeeding prosecutors are not involved. But instead of filing charges, was it overwhelmed by the power, by the wealth? He sent the case to a grand jury where prosecutors shockingly minimized the abuse, limited the witnesses, and treated vulnerable young girls as if they were criminals. And you can read that grand jury testimony yourself. At the urging of Krischer's prosecutors, the grand jury returned just one count against Epstein, and it is jaw-dropping: solicitation of prostitution, punishable by up to 60 days in jail. How crazy and wrong, an abomination, if you ask me. Disappointed and alarmed, Chief Ryder took the case to federal authorities, and what followed was more shock and awe to the justice system. In 2008, as we've heard, Acosta approved a secret, shameful, non-prosecution deal without notifying the survivors, and then sent the case back to Palm Beach County. Epstein was allowed to plead guilty to solicitation of prostitution, solicitation for a minor for prostitution. Really? That was that? And then he got an 18-month sentence, which he served about 13 months, federal immunity from prosecution here in South Florida, immunity for unnamed co-conspirators, and work relief privilege. Listen to this. He had work relief privileges that allowed him to leave the jail each day to continue his systematic sexual exploitation of women and girls. And the most troubling also, a deal was hidden from the public, and the full extent didn't come to light until reporting from the Miami Herald and the Palm Beach Post, who brought the fight to bring the grand jury records into the open. Justice was denied without explanation, and listen, I'm hoping as we move forward, these local prosecutors must be subpoenaed and they must be questioned under oath, because I think they know the secret. So these survivors were abused first by a predator and then failed by a justice system that too often protected wealth and power over vulnerable women and children. And let's be clear, folks, had prosecutors in Florida done their jobs, most likely hundreds of young women might have been spared unimaginable harm. So we're here again. We're going to continue to ask the questions that should have been answered years ago. Why was Jeffrey Epstein, a serial predator who used his wealth and influence to exploit underage girls, given little more than a slap of the wrist? Who else should be held accountable? And what must we continue to do to make sure this never happens again? We owe the survivors and the public the answers and more. And with that, I thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We're going to, of course, hear some opening testimony from survivors and advocates who will speak about the failure of our justice system to protect them, others, and certainly to hold Epstein and so many others accountable. They're going to each provide some opening remarks. I do want to introduce them briefly. We're going to hear from Danny Bensky, who is an advocate, dance, teaching artist, choreographer, and Epstein survivor. As an educator of the arts, Danny's advocacy derives from creating a safer world for her students and future generations. She is a public speaker and hopes that by sharing her story, we can get an inside perspective into grooming and how abuse can happen and how systems fail people. Danny was abused by Jeffrey Epstein in 2004 and 2005 when she was just 17 years old and working as a dancer in New York City. She has since spoken out about the government's handling of the case and has pursued legal action. And of course, the amount of courage is incredible. And I want to thank, of course, Danny for being here. We'll also hear from Rosa. Rosa is testifying under her first name and under that name only, just for her own safety. She was recruited in Uzbekistan by a modeling agent, co-conspirator, and brought to the U.S. with promises of a career. She met Jeffrey Epstein in 2009 and was abused over several years. With her immigration status used to keep her from leaving, Rosa is a fighter, a coach, a wife, and a stepmother. And her courage, of course, is immense, and we want to thank Rosa for being here. We're going to hear from Courtney Wild, who was abused by Jeffrey Epstein in Palm Beach beginning at the age of 14. Courtney is a mom, advocate, and survivor. She later brought a lawsuit against the federal government over the non-prosecution agreement that allowed Epstein to avoid federal charges. And she will speak about its lasting impact on survivors. We're also going to hear from Jenna Lisa Jones, who was abused by Jeffrey Epstein in Florida when she was 14 years old. She has spoken publicly about her experience and about her disappointment with the failure to fully release information related to this case. She is a mom, a wife, and a founding survivor of Survivors, Inc.
Okay, so while listening in on that Epstein hearing, you are listening to ranking members of that committee discussing some of the actual details of how victims in this case became embroiled in the tragedy that eventually came to create the scenario that has led to all of these hearings and all of this controversy and all of these instances of people who have been hurt and affected by Jeffrey Epstein and his organization. And so we now will take a break from that, but it is something we are going to monitor. It appeared just from looking, just from watching and observing, it certainly appears as though there are victims there in the building and that they may give testimony themselves. So we are going to continue to monitor this. We've got a lot of live events going on right now. We're going to try to very smoothly make sure we get time with each and every one of them. And speaking of which, we are going to head out to Baltimore, where there is a press conference today about the Key Bridge collapse. The Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed in March of 2024, if you recall correctly, and it has been a major story. The recovery from that, the rebuilding of that. 6 Marylanders were lost on that day, and now a press conference today as they continue to make progress on building back from that accident. Let's take a listen.
And sorry, before we go straight into that, I'm going to see if I can cue it up to the beginning. It is a live stream. It might not allow me to, but that way you can get a little more context that way.
Okay, so that was producer Sarah Calloway, who is going to make sure that we start this press conference right from the beginning. We typically will pick these things up in the middle, but we want to make sure we get a foundation of why they're having this particular press conference at this time. Again, this is March of 2024. We have seen periodic sort of anniversary press conferences, and it looks like we're ready to go. Let's listen in on the update.
Wasn't fully reopened until 11 weeks after. In the meantime, container traffic into and out of the port ground to a halt. The economic and human costs of this catastrophe have been borne every day by ordinary men and women, and most of all, by the families of the 6 workers who were killed. I echo the gratitude expressed by U.S. Attorney Hayes to the first responders and our federal and state law enforcement partners for their tireless efforts to clear the channel, investigate the elision, and prevent future disasters. As U.S. Attorney Hayes noted, an indictment is only an accusation. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty at trial beyond a reasonable doubt. And now I'll turn it over to EPA Assistant Administrator Jeff Hall.
Good morning. I'm Jeffrey Hall, the Assistant Administrator for the Office of Enforcement and Compliance Assurance at the EPA. Our Criminal Investigations Division worked on this case with the FBI and the Coast Guard from the beginning to develop it. I want to thank the Department of Justice colleagues for bringing this indictment today. EPA special agents were among the first aboard the MV Dolly after it struck the bridge because it carried over 760 tons of hazardous materials. Our criminal investigation agents are specially trained to operate in high hazard environments, including in disasters and in the aftermath of chemical releases and in confined spaces. So that day, they donned protective gear, deployed air monitors, navigated a maze of dislodged cargo containers, and assessed the threats to the city and the river coming from the ship. They ensured that there was no immediate danger of a major release of hazardous materials. And then our agents' role transitioned to working alongside the FBI and Coast Guard as a co-lead in this investigation. Their hard work resulted in this indictment today. Although we are fortunate that not all of the hazardous materials escaped their containers, some materials did, including oil and other chemicals. Pieces of the bridge, vehicles, and other debris that fell into the Patapsco River, which is used in international commerce, polluted it and obstructed its navigability. But we narrowly avoided worse. Certainly, but for the quick action of MDTA, there could have been many more deaths from passersby on the bridge. And when a ship strikes a bridge, it and its cargo, as well as whatever else hazardous might be on the bridge at the time, can poison rivers, large watersheds like the Chesapeake, cities, and their drinking water, causing harm and disruption and requiring intensive cleanup. Indeed, hazardous materials routinely crossed the Key Bridge as the only route in the area, and its destruction means that they now must take longer routes through other areas of the community. We cannot allow ourselves to be placed in such a vulnerable position. This administration and the EPA are committed to ensuring that foreign corporations do not profit off of polluting America. The United States is not a safe harbor for third world pollution. Toxic substances, illegal pesticides, and even hazardous waste enter the United States every day, sometimes illegally, and they do so on foreign ships that pollute our waters. Until America can reindustrialize, we must vigilantly police these dangerous imports and the vessels carrying them to ensure that they comply with our laws and that we protect our nation. This is precisely the type of situation that must not happen again. Foreign flagged vessels with foreign crews carrying dangerous cargo cannot flout our laws, poison our communities, and destroy our infrastructure. We proudly join the U.S. Attorney's Office in prosecuting this case. We will rely on the Department of Justice to prove its allegations in court. Thank you. Now you'll hear from Special Agent in Charge, Jimmy Paul of the FBI Baltimore Field Office.
Good morning. My name is Jimmy Paul, and I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the FBI's Baltimore Field Office. The Key Bridge collapse forever changed Maryland. It changed the way we look at bridges and the way we look at ships. This tragedy changed 6 families forever. Alejandro, Miguel, Dorlian, Maynor, Carlos, and Jose were making our roads safer when they lost their lives on that fateful day in March of 2024. We know, as is laid out in this indictment, the collapse should never have happened. As alleged, the bridge was struck and collapsed because those who were responsible for the ship's operation deliberately cut corners at the expense of safety. Marylanders felt collective shock seeing a defining part of Baltimore's skyline gone in just seconds. That shock turned to shared grief as we learned of the 6 lives lost and the unimaginable terror felt in their last moments. Daily commutes, international and domestic commerce, entire communities were upended and remain so. The economic cost, as well as the cost of rebuilding the bridge, is in the billions. The FBI responded immediately to the collapse, helping with the urgent search and rescue and assisting family members of those lost. The FBI also opened a criminal investigation. We worked this case methodically and diligently over the past 2 years. FBI investigators became experts in the complex inner workings of these ships and the rules and regulations that govern this industry. The FBI executed more than 24 federal search warrants, including aboard the Dali and its sister ship, the Saltoro. We located witnesses across the globe. We conducted close to 200 interviews. We spent hundreds of hours processing, reviewing, and analyzing terabytes of data, which brings us to today's announcement. The indictment shows that Synergy and Radhakrishnan Karthik Nair repeatedly failed to document, investigate, and report significant safety risks and hazards aboard the Dali. They forged safety inspections and certifications. They falsely claimed the ship was in good working order and then lied to investigators about their actions when they were questioned. This indictment should send a message to all ship operators that circumventing safety requirements and breaking U.S. laws will not be tolerated. The FBI collaborated closely with our partners throughout this investigation. The EPA's Criminal Investigation Division, U.S. Coast Guard Investigative Service, the Maryland's U.S. Attorney's Office, and the Department of Justice's Environment and Natural Resources Division. We are grateful for their commitment to finding the truth and holding those responsible accountable. This was a tragic and significant moment for Baltimore. The FBI named this case Last Twilight. That name harkens back to another significant moment in Baltimore's history. The phrase, "at the twilight's last gleaming," is from our national anthem, and the Star-Spangled Banner was penned on a vessel in the waters near where we stand today, where the bridge once spanned and where 6 lives were tragically lost. The altered skyline is a constant reminder of this tragedy. For the FBI, it also serves as a reminder of our commitment to finding the truth and to bringing justice to everyone affected. I thank you for your time today, and I will turn it back over to U.S. Attorney Hayes.
Thank you, everyone. While this is an ongoing prosecution, we'll be limited in our answers. However, we will take a few questions. Sir.
Hello, Tom Costello with NBC News. You believe that the ship operators... Sorry, I'll do that again. Hi, Tom Costello with NBC News. You believe that the ship operators and you believe that the superintendent deliberately misled the NTSB and the FBI. And do you believe other ship operators right now may also be skirting the safety laws of this country?
So, yes, as alleged in the indictment, there are obstruction of agency proceeding and false statement charges related to statements made by Synergy employees to the NTSB, as well as false certifications related to safety inspections. As for your second, we certainly hope that folks in the shipping industry will take note of this indictment, and to the extent there are any other investigations ongoing, I'm not able to comment. Yes.
Hi, I'm Hayes Gardner with the Baltimore Banner. Is Nair or anyone else from Synergy in custody? And if so, what was the extradition process like?
We currently believe that Mr. Nair is located in India. Yes.
Hi, Jessica Sonkin, Fox News. Just to follow up on that, do you think you can get Nair to face justice on U.S. soil?
We are going to enforce all of and use all of our available law enforcement tools to attempt to do just that.
And given litigation and other pending factors, do you think this 2030 reopen date will hold?
I'm not able to comment on that. That would something I would refer over to the state. Yes, sir. Oh.
Hi, sorry.
Wherever the mic goes.
Campbell Robertson with the New York Times. Does the settlement that was reached to the civil side of the DOJ, could that be affected by the findings of fraud or obstruction or other things that might have misled authorities about what actually happened?
We view that settlement as separate. The individuals here were not involved in that specific settlement, so I won't comment directly on that, but we do view them as separate and unrelated to the criminal investigation as of this time. Yes.
Hi, it's Scott Massioni with WYPR News. Would there be the possibility of having reparation type funds given at the end of this if they are found guilty in a criminal court? And then also, is there what would the maximum sentencing be underneath these charges?
Certainly. So we'll lay out more details in the upcoming press release as to the specific maximum sentence. What I will say for the corporate individuals, there is a possibility of a fine that would be twice the loss amount, so which is currently estimated to be at least $5 billion. So that is one of the available penalties. We also, of course, will attempt to, upon conviction, if appropriate and available to us, seek restitution and or forfeiture related to any criminal conviction. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Katie Metler with the Washington Post. The civil trial related to this case is scheduled to begin in a couple weeks. Do you have any sense of how the criminal case is going to impact or what the interplay will be between those two cases as they go to the court at the same time?
I do not. That will ultimately be up to the judge overseeing the civil case, along with the parties in that case. Yes, sir.
Holmes from CNN. The flush pump system, is that installed because it is a cheaper system? Was there an issue with the original system, or was that just intentional? What was the reason behind the flush pump, I guess?
So as alleged in the indictment, which I'll stick to the four corners of the indictment as much as I can, there was the availability of the fuel supply that was approved and within international law. However, the ship operators, the defendants, elected to use the flushing pump instead. I'll leave it at that for now, given that it's an ongoing investigation, and there are additional details within the indictment.
Okay, that press conference ongoing, but the big announcement, the Singapore-based operator of the ship that crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge that led to the collapse of that bridge and ultimately the death of 6 people, has been indicted along with a specific employee, according to federal prosecutors in that press conference. So 2 different people indicted in regards to the crash that led to the collapse of that bridge. The operator of the ship and an employee of the Singapore-based company that was operating the ship. You heard them ask about whether or not they'll be able to get jurisdiction in order to actually follow through with the judicial process on these individuals, and that part remains to be seen. But March 26, 2024, that crash killed 6 workers who had been filling potholes and of course collapsed one of the more famous bridges in the mid-Atlantic area. And now we see 2 indictments come down 2 years on. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break here. When we get back, there are multiple live events happening right now. We're going to continue to make sure we pay attention to each and every one of them after the break. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News here. About 10:40 a.m. here, and I just want to give you a sense of how much we have happening right now. On our big board, you may be able to make out Ted Cruz right there. Ted Cruz is presenting some sort of honor to the astronauts that were aboard the Artemis II. That's happening right now. This is a live look outside of Emory Medical Facility in Atlanta, where two of the passengers aboard the cruise ship that had an outbreak of hantavirus were transported yesterday. Of course, that's the White House. And then over there, we just saw Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth head into that room, ostensibly for more hearings about the 2027 budget. But for the time being, we are going to go back out to testimony from victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, including family members of victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Virginia Giuffre's family is at the podium right now, one of the most prominent accusers of Jeffrey Epstein and the powerful men that were involved in his operation. Let's listen in on what the family of Virginia Giuffre has to say right now.
People. For years, survivors have been asked the same question: who were the names? The truth is, many survivors stay silent because many of these individuals still hold power, wealth, and influence in our society. Point blank, period. That is dangerous. No survivor should have to risk their own safety just to be believed. But Virginia, she did it anyway. She stood up when others were afraid, told the truth under oath, and faced people she knew were powerful. Today, we lean on her courage once again, because she believed accountability should reach everyone involved, no matter their status or influence. If Virginia were here today, she would say these words herself. Since she cannot, I will say them for her as her little brother. And with that, I'd like to share Virginia's own words from her sworn deposition dated May 3rd, 2016. They trafficked me to many people. Okay, please name a person that Ghislaine Maxwell directed you to have sex with. Prince Andrew. Okay, who else? As a whole, they both trafficked me to many people. Okay, so can you please tell me when Ghislaine Maxwell asked you to have sex with another person? Glenn Dubin. Who else? Well, Redacted is another one. Ghislaine Maxwell asked you to have sex with Redacted? And Glenn Dubin and Steve Kaufman were, like I said, the first people I was sent to after my training. And where does Alan Dershowitz fit into this group of people? Same. I can't tell you piece by piece by piece who. I know Glenn Dubin was first. Okay. And I know Stephen Kaufman was one of the first that I was sent to. Alan Dershowitz could have been between there. Between Glenn and Stephen. This is only a small sample of the thousands of stories that still remain untold. But the question today is no longer whether names exist. The question is, what will Congress and the Department of Justice do about it? Even if only a handful of names are publicly known, will there finally be investigations and accountability? With that, I'd like to turn it over to my wife, Amanda Roberts.
First, I want to thank this committee and Representative Garcia and everyone here who continues to fight with us for accountability, but most importantly, standing with survivors. Virginia's story was harrowing, and as you heard my husband speak, she wasn't afraid to say the names. We are talking about millions of files, sworn testimony, depositions, emails, flight records, bank records, photographs, videos, and evidence collected over decades. Evidence that points to a network, not just to people who trafficked and abused over 1,200 victims, girls, children, women, and boys. Epstein and Maxwell did not act alone, and Palm Beach was the blueprint. It was the center for expansion. So when this Department of Justice says there is nothing to see here, survivors know exactly what that sounds like: a cover-up. Virginia wrote in Nobody's Girl, "Don't be fooled by those in Epstein's circle who said they didn't know what Epstein was doing." That sentence should guide this committee's work. because I don't recall is not enough. When people like Les Wexner are asked about Epstein's finances and alleged connections to his network, the public deserves real answers and investigations. When Howard Lutnick has given changing accounts about his association with Epstein, that deserves scrutiny, resignations, and investigations. When former Prince Andrew denied knowing Virginia, despite evidence and testimony surrounding that encounter, that deserves scrutiny and investigation. And when Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche met with Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted sex trafficker accused of perjury, and shortly after was moved to a minimum security prison, that demands answers and investigations. So today we ask for 4 things. First, Congress must hold this Department of Justice accountable, including contempt proceedings, as the record has shown that this DOJ has violated the law. Second, state investigations must continue and expand in New Mexico, New York, Florida, the Virgin Islands, and everywhere this network operated. Third, this committee must issue further subpoenas and required alleged co-conspirators, enablers, financiers, and witnesses to testify under oath. Fourth, follow the money. Financial records are not secondary. They may be the key to exposing the full network. Suspicious payments, shell entities, possible tax violations, money laundering, and transactions connected to trafficking and abuse must be investigated aggressively, because financial crimes can open the door and lead to real prosecutions. And finally, the Epstein and Maxwell investigations must be reopened, not partially, not quietly, but fully. Survivors and the public deserve the truth, and enablers must no longer hide behind wealth, power, or silence. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for those words.
Okay, back here in the studio after listening to what is unquestionably a passionate testimony from Virginia Giuffre's brother and sister-in-law. Virginia Giuffre, of course, one of the most vocal accusers of Jeffrey Epstein. She died by suicide in April of 2025 at the age of 41. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break now. That hearing is ongoing. We will likely go back to that hearing as our show goes forward at some point in time. For now, a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll decide where to head next. But again, a lot of live events going on this morning. We're going to try to cover all of them for you on Live Impact News. Okay, welcome back here to Live Impact News. We're going to take a look out at Capitol Hill as the Artemis II astronauts have just finished receiving some sort of honor or plaque or memorabilia from both Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar, elected representatives in Congress. But it appears as though that event has just wrapped. You know, Sarah, I wonder if it's even worth listening in at this point. Okay, now what we did do is we did record that event. We had enough other live things that we needed to get to that we ended up not going out to the Artemis II sort of ceremony. We did record it. We want to go back to this hearing with Epstein victims, Jeffrey Epstein victims, and listen into that. If that ends and we get later into the 11 o'clock hour and we have time, we can always revisit that Artemis II ceremony. But for now, pressing matters that we want to get to live here. Let's listen in as Epstein survivors speak in Palm Beach, Florida, in front of lawmakers.
There needs to be a clear definition of what it means to meaningfully confer with victims. I'm still not sure what that actually means, but I know it never happened for me. There must be real consequences and penalties in the statute that apply automatically when a court determines that a victim's rights have been violated. The answer after years and years of litigation cannot be nothing happens when you finally win and prove that your rights have been violated. If prosecutors choose to ignore victims, those victims' voices must be put on the record, memorialized, and preserved, especially when a deal is made behind closed doors. There needs to be attorneys' fees provision so victims can find lawyers who will stand up for them. If those changes had existed back then, maybe what had happened to me and so many others would have not happened. My case against the government for violating the rights of at least 40 of us Palm Beach kids was happening from 2008 to 2019. Do you know how many other girls Jeffrey abused in that time period? I bet the FBI knows. But the point is that Epstein continued to abuse other girls in New York, New Mexico, around the world, and even still here in Florida, well, after he was released in 2009, and everybody knew it. There were lawsuits, there were so many new articles, he was a registered sex offender, and still nothing was done by the government. Not until 2019 when he was finally arrested. None of those girls should have ever been abused. Jeffrey Epstein should have been in jail. If he had been in jail like any other man who did the same thing as him, he would have been, and there wouldn't have been a single victim after 2009. But he wasn't, and he did. He abused so many girls after 2009 at the same exact time that I was asking the government why he got the deal and why they violated my rights. That is the real injustice here. That is the real thing we need to prevent from ever happening again in this country. I was there for his bail hearing in 2019, and I spoke to the judge right in front of him about how dangerous he was. The bail was denied, and for the first time, I thought we might finally get justice. A month later, he was dead. Once again, the system failed us. Someone let him die in a secure prison, ensuring that he would never be held accountable for what he did to me as a kid. Since then, there have been prosecutions, there have been civil cases, there have been settlements, but none of that changes what was lost, and none of that fixes what was allowed to happen in the first place. We fought for years to get Jeffrey Epstein arrested. We fought to hold people accountable. We did not fight so that this could turn into something political or so that our rights would be violated once again. I lost years of my life fighting this, and so did many others. We did that so the next victim wouldn't have to. So don't let this work be in vain. Make the Crime Victims' Rights Act matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wild.
Okay, more testimony wrapping up there, and that hearing will continue. We're going to take a break right here. We will very likely have many more opportunities to revisit that throughout the stream as it is ongoing, but a commercial first here on Live Impact News. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News. And as we alluded to before, this hearing involving Jeffrey Epstein victims speaking before lawmakers is still live. And I think we're going to stick with that for the time being. We are going to continue to listen in on that particular hearing. I'm going to give another update on exactly what it is. It's Democrats from the House Oversight Committee holding a field hearing in Palm Beach regarding Jeffrey Epstein, and we've been hearing testimony from victims of Jeffrey Epstein throughout the hearing. And let's stay with that. We're going to go back live out to Florida right now.
Prioritizing coming together, not political showmanship. I'm always asked, what does accountability look like? Accountability means removing perpetrators from power, seeing arrests be made, and legislators pass laws like protecting victims' rights, like Virginia's law, which would remove the statute of limitations for victims' civil claims against their abusers. Our entrenched systemic failures have allowed powerful people like Jeffrey to thrive. When institutions prioritize protecting the powerful and their enablers over protecting victims, abuse becomes normalized. If we continue down this path, the question isn't whether abuse will happen again, but who will be the next Jeffrey Epstein. This moment is critical. It is time to reform our system to protect our survivors, not the perpetrators, and to ensure the truth can come to light. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ms. Rosa, you are now recognized for your opening statement.
In 2008, I just turned 18 when I met MC Square Model Management owner named Jean-Luc Brunel. Coming from a financial and stable background, I was a perfect target for coercion. I was promised modeling career beyond my dreams. In less than 6 months, MC Squared obtained an O1 visa for me, a feat nearly impossible for a teenager with almost no experience. I did not have the documentation to earn that visa. By May of 2009, I was in New York City. I was isolated, controlled in a manner I've never experienced before. Within 3 months, the agency claimed I owed them over $10,000. I had no family, no friends, or no money. MC Square controlled every aspect of my life, where I went, how I dressed, and how I looked. They provided me enough of allowance to keep me afloat, but never enough to be independent. Less than a month after I arrived to the United States, my agency sent me to a home of a registered sex offender. I was introduced to his girlfriend under the disguise that she was a photographer who helped me build my portfolio. Now I know that Jeffrey Epstein was supposed to be in jail cell in June of 2008. I met him at his house right here in West Palm Beach. He was not in a jail. Jean-Luc Brunel brought me to West Palm Beach to have dinner with Epstein in July. Epstein used the names of powerful politicians to demonstrate his influence. He told me he's an investor of the very agency that promised me a career. He also spoke of his arrest that it was a game, bragging about girls visiting his cell, and his friendships with authorities. Jeffrey offered me a position at the Florida Science Foundation to handle phone calls to help me with my financial troubles. One day, his masseuse called me into his room where I was molested for the first time by Jeffrey. For the following 3 years, I was subject to ongoing rape. Jeffrey Epstein was under house arrest for the molestation of underage girls at the exact time he was abusing me. Seeing that the fact that he could commit those acts made justice feel impossible to me, and it took my ability to seek for help. I was summoned to his residence right here in West Palm Beach. My agency relocated me to Miami to keep me closer and only after he was released from the house arrest, I was allowed to go back to New York City, where my nightmares continued. Those years of abuse turned into a decade of fear that I still carry today. I eventually found the courage to reach out for help. I stepped forward along other survivors, hoping those who allowed this to happen will be held accountable. I kept my identity protected as Jane Doe. I woke up one day with my name mentioned over 500 times. While the rich and powerful remained protected by redaction, my name was exposed to the world. Now reporters from across the globe contact me. I cannot live without looking over my shoulder. I can only imagine the long-term impact this mistake will have on my life. I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. So I want to end this statement with a story. In 1800, the doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis discovered something life-saving. He realized that the doctors who were performing autopsies and then immediately delivering babies without washing their hand were carrying cadaverous particles, causing women die in agony. He had evidence, he had solution. He begged the medical establishment to wash their hands to save lives. But the doctors were offended. They found it easier to protect their own reputation and maintain the status quo than to admit they were the ones causing harms. They chose their pride over the life of women, and Dr. Semmelweis was ignored, ridiculed, and eventually cast out. I see the same patterns happening today with handling of these files. Releasing my name while redacting the name of other powerful is not a mistake, it's a choice. It's a choice to prioritize the comfort of an institution over the safety of the survivors. The evidence is right here, yet those in power rather us die socially, emotionally, and physically, than admit their own complicity. I am no longer a Jane Doe, hiding in the files. I'm a woman, I'm a fighter, and I'm a witness, and I'm begging you, please wash your hands.
Well, the round of applause in that hearing after that particular testimony, and you saw those two victims embrace after it was over as well, and a number of quotes stand out, including prioritizing comfort of institutions over survivors, she begging them to wash their hands towards the end, and you can just kind of feel the pain but also the resilience in that testimony right there as this hearing continues, featuring lawmakers as Epstein survivors and victims continue to give testimony in Palm Beach, Florida. Okay, we are going to take a commercial break right now. We'll be right back with more Live Impact News. Okay, back here in the Live Impact studio, and we're going to go straight back out, this time to Capitol Hill, where Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth continues to give testimony regarding the 2027 budget proposal, a budget proposal that includes a massive increase requested for defense spending to the tune of $1.5 trillion. We've seen multiple of these hearings already this month, and it continues on with the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense. Let's take a listen.
Described Ukraine as the Silicon Valley of warfare, as I suggested earlier. I think we'll agree on that. And the outcome of the war really matters to American interests. Is there a policy preventing senior department officials from traveling to Ukraine? Do you support or oppose senior officials traveling there?
We've had, Senator, we've had many senior officials travel there, and we learn a great deal. In fact, I've personally approved additional personnel there to learn from that drone battlefield, both on offense and defense, to ensure that we're learning every possible lesson from that conflict and incorporating it in real time into how we defend and we go on offense in an era where drone dominance is required. And that's why this budget spends so much on drone dominance. Take the lessons learned from Ukraine and other battlefields and ensure we're applying them throughout the fighting force as quickly as possible.
Well, you know, I think what's not in dispute is that NATO is the most important military alliance in world history. Nobody's ever pulled something together like this and held it together to prevent the worst for a longer period of time. Basically, it seems to me that a lot of the European countries think that we're reducing our influence there, that they're sort of on their own, and somehow American leadership is not essential to NATO going forward. I would argue that it's certainly essential for us to continue to be the leader, and it's important to note the other countries that are looking to NATO, our allies in the Pacific, helping Ukraine, interested in coming to NATO meetings, anxious for America to continue to defend the free world, not just in NATO, but worldwide. It's a big job, and they're looking to us. There's nobody else who can do that. So what is the department's concise vision for the role of our allies and partners in defending America's global interests?
Senator, our vision is to have real, capable allies and partners. I think that's what we've seen in Epic Fury. Israel's Air Force and their ability, will, and their capability is a demonstration to the world. There are other allies like that, and we need more of them. So flags are not the goal. The number of flags involved in an operation are not the goal. The goal is the number of capable formations who can actually fight alongside the American fighting man and woman. So it's not just us all the time. I saw that in Iraq. I saw that in Afghanistan. Our generation has experienced that. No administration has done more to ensure that our allies and partners realize that they need to step up so that we can amplify our capabilities. That's what burden sharing is all about. It's not just we carry the burden for other countries. It's other countries are capable of coming alongside us as well.
But I also think Putin's invasion of Ukraine helped get their attention that they need to step up as well. And the president's been very clear about that. So they are headed in the right direction. What I'm worried about is which direction we headed in.
I think it's very encouraging that European countries have stepped up to ensure that Ukraine can defend itself. I think that's a very good development.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Secretary, in January, President Trump signed the fiscal year 26 defense appropriations bill. It provided $400 million specifically to aid Ukraine in their fight against Russia. This is at a time when our European allies and partners have stepped up to take on the overwhelming majority of the cost of any munitions or support for Ukraine. So far, your department has not spent a dime of that $400 million, despite repeated follow-up requests from the chairman and myself. In a call just last week, your staff indicated we will see a spend plan for those funds this week. Will you commit to spending those $400 million for weapons for Ukraine, and when will we receive your department's spend plan?
I appreciate that question. The $400 million for European capacity building has been released from the Secretary of War's office, and we'll work with EUCOM to make sure they spend it accordingly and properly, which we have all faith that they will.
Mr. Secretary, when will this subcommittee get the associated spend plan for the $400 million?
Yeah, I mean, we will work with your committee to make sure that the spend plan as allocated, I want to make sure EUCOM is fully informed in how they want to spend this. They're the closest to the problem set. And so working with them to ensure that you have the spend plan, we'll work with you.
Mr. Secretary, thank you, but it's May, and this has been the law since January, and you or your representatives have been asked this repeatedly on a bipartisan basis by members of this committee, and I think dragging our feet on this small investment in Ukraine's defense sends exactly the wrong signal to Putin at a time when the contest for freedom has its front lines in Ukraine. As you said, Europe has stepped up, donating billions to buy U.S. weapons to send to Ukraine to help them as they continue to take ground on the battlefield. But it seems not all the money donated by our European allies is going to buy new weapons for Ukraine, as they had understood. The memo you released just last week prior to your testimony at Senate Armed Services indicated DOD has and will continue to divert some of these funds back into DOD accounts for our own use. Will you commit, Mr. Secretary, to spend every dollar donated by our European allies for Ukraine on new weapons and capabilities for Ukraine?
The Pearl Initiative, which you're referring to, which is instituted underneath this administration so that European countries are paying for American equipment to provide as they see fit. NATO allocates where it would like to allocate that. It can choose Ukraine if it'd like. That money, when it's paid for, that's where it goes. It goes to those efforts.
Well, look, as the chairman raised, and as I will repeat, I view NATO as the most successful mutual defense relationship we've ever had. And your comment about we need not flags, but real and capable allies, and the foot dragging on both Pearl and the investments in our Baltic allies and Ukraine causes me real concern. As you know, a bipartisan group of us from the Senate and the House went to Denmark to lay a wreath at the memorial to the 52 Danes who served, fought, and died alongside our troops in Afghanistan. Those were not just flags. Those were real warfighters who fought and died at our request in a war that began by NATO's initiation, a service and sacrifice in Afghanistan. I just think we're sending the wrong signal by the president's announcement of the intention to withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany. Could you help me understand what is the strategic reason for a drawdown of U.S. troops from Western Europe?
I would just like to clarify, Senator, it's never about the heroism of foreign troops. I fought alongside great British and European and Australian allies in Afghanistan. It's the political caveats and the limitations that they come with. It's not the troops. It's the capitals of those militaries that limit what they're able to do, where they're able to go, who they're able to fight, that create limits on our own. And anybody that's been in these formations knows that. So it's easy to talk about here. It's another thing to apply. And we need allies that are burden sharing, not becoming a burden with political limitations. I'm not talking about the troops.
Thank you. Our president said in Europe that we never asked for and never received anything from our NATO allies. Was that your experience in Afghanistan, serving and fighting alongside our NATO allies?
I've written extensively about that, and the vast majority of my experience was frustration with the limits of what those troops were able to do because of the political caveats, rules of engagement, and limits that came from their capitals.
But you don't doubt our question that about a third of all the combat casualties in our war in Afghanistan were our NATO partners and allies.
I would have to go back and check that number, but I take your word for it.
Let me just assert that hundreds and hundreds of service members from, as you put it, Australia and the United Kingdom, as well as many other of our allies, served, fought, and died alongside us. So I'm just going to simply say, in terms of our reliance on our partnerships, I'll agree with the chairman that at a moment when Russia and China, North Korea and Iran are coming closer together and delivering a bedeviling lethality in this ongoing war in Iran, for which we don't have a clear strategy or clear answers, Our better strategy would be to partner more closely with Ukraine, dig in deeper with our real values-based allies, our treaty allies in the Western Pacific and in Europe, and together find a path out of this, rather than berating them and bullying them for not coming along in a war they were not consulted about or briefed on before it began. I look forward to a second round. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions continue in that hearing regarding the 2027 defense budget with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. As for us here now, we are going to go on another commercial break. When we get back, more Live Impact for you coming up soon. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News. We're going to talk Virginia politics here for a moment. First, let's begin with the continued battle over redistricting. Democrats on Monday filed an emergency appeal with the United States Supreme Court seeking to stop a Virginia Supreme Court ruling that invalidated a ballot measure that would have given the Democratic Party an additional 4 likely winnable United States House seats. You are likely familiar with the entire sort of itinerary of this case, and so we'll kind of continue from here. It was on Friday that the Virginia Supreme Court struck down the constitutional amendment that was passed by voters. A 4-3 decision from the state Supreme Court found that the Democratic-controlled legislature improperly began the process after early voting had begun in the Virginia general election last fall. The process needed to start before the election. The argument came down to whether or not early voting constituted the election. The Virginia Supreme Court decided that it did. However, it is now the case that Democrats have filed an emergency appeal with the United States Supreme Court. And so that is the next step here as we continue to wait for this redistricting war to finish playing out before the midterms. Now, there was a recent Supreme Court ruling that severely weakened the Voting Rights Act. So the most recent thing that we have heard from the Supreme Court is something that has sort of more favored Republicans in terms of how redistricting is playing out, as states in the South particularly are now scrambling to redraw their maps after that Supreme Court ruling. Now, this includes Alabama. On Monday, Alabama had the stage set for them by the Supreme Court to eliminate one out of the 2 total largely black congressional districts that they have in their state. This would create an opportunity for Republicans to gain a seat in Alabama. This is again following that Supreme Court ruling in April. There was a judicial order that came down from the Supreme Court to a judicial order had come down from the court to use a court-imposed House map until after the 2030 census. This new ruling has determined that that map does not have to be used, which means this could free the state up to use a Republican legislature-approved 2023 map that includes only 1 district where black residents make up a majority. Alabama officials recently enacted a law to void the results of the May 19th primary, looking to instead hold a new primary after everything has been redrawn. So a primary is coming up on May 19th. A motion has already been filed, a law enacted to void the results of that primary as they try to redraw their districts following the Supreme Court ruling that severely weakened the Voting Rights Act. So this continues on state to state as we see redistricting be one of the preeminent headlines in political discourse here in the U.S. Now, we're going to kind of make our way back to Virginia politics for the time being. We are in the midst of a story that has been sort of developing since yesterday. Congresswoman Jen Kiggans is now pushing back after Democrats accused her of condoning racist remarks made during a Richmond radio interview. The controversy centers on comments from a conservative host of a radio show who used a phrase historically associated with racism while criticizing House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Kiggans responded ditto during the exchange, which sparked immediate backlash from her Democratic opponent as well as other Democrats in the state. Her Democratic opponent being Congresswoman Elaine Luria. They are likely set to square off for that District 2 representation in the midterms. Now, Jen Kiggans has put up a social media post in which she, again, pushes back after these accusations. Quote, "This is precisely what's wrong with Democrats. Every lie and distortion is intended to distract from getting their hats handed to them and the Virginia Supreme Court's clear message, stop trying to rig our elections." So she mentions the redistricting situation currently playing out. Then she goes back to that radio interview, quote, "The radio host should not have used that language, and I do not and did not condone it. It was obvious to anyone listening that I was agreeing Hakeem Jeffries should stay out of Virginia. Democrats are trying to destroy Virginia's court because they disagree with it. That is the real danger to our country." So, again, the denial there, I do not and did not condone it, which, again, goes back to a phrase that is historically associated with racism used by that radio host, and Kiggans responding ditto, but she says she did not and does not condone the language that was used by the host. Let's see reaction from other lawmakers here. Aaron Rouse, formerly a city councilman right here in Virginia Beach, now a member of the Virginia Senate, quote, "I am deeply appalled by anyone who promotes this rhetoric. We are no longer enslaved on plantations. We now hold positions of power our ancestors fought for. We've come too far from Virginia Beach to Washington, D.C. to normalize this behavior. Shame on you, Jen." That is Aaron Rouse of Virginia reacting to the comments by that radio host that Jen Kiggans then responded to. So getting reaction from a variety of state politicians here as this has been playing out since that radio interview yesterday. And lastly, we'll hear from Elaine Luria here. Now, we are not going to repeat the statement because it is offensive in nature, though that statement is included in Elaine Luria's tweet here. So we have the racist comments proudly endorsed today by Jen Kiggans warning House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and you can take it from there if you'd like to read it, are disgusting and beneath any elected official. I grew up in the South. I know what these racist dog whistles mean. Again, we are not reading the statement at this time, though it has appeared on our screen by the nature of this tweet because it is offensive in its nature, and it does represent a phrase and a phrasing that has been historically associated with racism. So we have Jen Kiggans pushing back against some of the criticism that you just saw, including criticism from her opponent in the upcoming midterms, Elaine Luria. So that is a wrap on Virginia politics right now, which Virginia politics, as you can see, continues to be very much in the headlines of national politics here as we move closer and closer to the midterms. And we're going to take a commercial break on Live Impact News. We'll be right back with more. We've got live events that we're going to continue to visit right when we come back. Okay, welcome back to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now, where we are going to, let's go ahead and monitor the different events that we've got going on right now. We have the Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense budget hearing, specifically about the requested increase in defense spending in the 2027 budget proposal from the Trump administration. And then we have the Epstein hearing happening before Democratic lawmakers in Palm Beach, Florida, in which we have already heard multiple victims and families of victims giving testimony. What we're going to do is we're going to monitor both of these, but for now we're going to listen in live once again on the hearing regarding Jeffrey Epstein in Palm Beach, Florida.
Of $1.5 billion with a B, and include the names of women and girls he may have trafficked, as well as the names of his potential clients. I believe that this is paramount to the investigation of this sex trafficking ring. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
If we're serious about following the money, I believe that these SARS reports must be disclosed by the U.S. Treasury Department now, immediately today. Last topic, Ms. Hirsch. Can you give me this? These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, they must be disclosed today. What do you think about that?
Yes. I absolutely agree with you.
They may be among us today.
Wow.
Perpetrating a continuation of a sex trafficking ring. Now, Mr. Coven, DOJ has not released all of the raw interviews and transcripts from the more than 40 victims of the DOJ's that were investigated in the DOJ's 2008 investigation, right?
Correct.
And DOJ has not released all of the video footage collected at Epstein's properties, correct?
Absolutely. Not only that, I've actually walked through the home of Jeffrey Epstein after the incidents occurred and saw where the video cameras were located and no longer existed.
Wow. Epstein tried to maintain his power over those he abused by taking away their chance at justice. We cannot let that happen. Donald Trump, I'm calling on you to listen to survivors. Release all of the documents. Unredact all these people. Prosecute the rest of these people and investigate the remaining. In addition, Ghislaine Maxwell should never, ever, ever receive clemency. That monster should not be given pardon, and ensure every enabler of Epstein faces consequences, no matter who they are or their political affiliation. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. Now we'll have Representative Stansbury.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And I just want to start out by acknowledging our survivors who are here with us, and to those of you who spoke. People tell you all the time that you're brave, and you are, but I know that it comes at great cost to yourself, great cost to your families. But I want you to know, and part of why I asked the staff to hold up this picture is because you are literally changing the face of the planet by standing up and telling your stories. And even though the system is failing you again right now in Congress, you are changing the world by helping people who are survivors, who are victims, who have never had their stories told publicly, to know that they're not alone. So I want to say thank you for everything that you are doing. And I know that it's hard, but what you're doing is changing the planet right now. So thank you for holding that up. I got in early yesterday, and I went for a walk. I walked to downtown here in West Palm Beach, and then I walked across the bridge. I think like millions of people across the country, I've seen, of course, the documentary that documents what happened here in West Palm Beach. And I wanted to walk across the bridge that survivors had told the story themselves of literally having been driven across. But I don't think that I truly understood the power, the wealth, the abuse that has happened in this community until I saw the mansions and the estates, the private clubs, and how inequality is literally written into the landscape here. And the reason why I wanted to start there is because there has been a lot said about the system of abuse that Epstein and Maxwell perpetrated. There has been a lot said about how grooming occurred, how recruitment happened, and how he psychologically threatened, abused, and used all these different tactics to abuse girls and women. But I want to make one thing clear here today, and I want to ask some questions about this, is we talk about the system failing. The system didn't fail. The system was designed to protect the wealthy. The system was rigged from the beginning when those mansions were built. The system was built on inequality. The system was built on exploiting people. It's written into the landscape here in West Palm Beach. It's written into the landscape in New Mexico, where Jeffrey Epstein went to Santa Fe with his rich friends and recruited girls that he exploited and then trafficked to other rich friends that he flew to New Mexico. This wasn't failure, this was a system. It was a system of exploitation, it was a system of abuse, and it was a system of power. And that's one of the things that I want to really dive into here with my short time today. Because the officials, the federal, the state, the local, the attorney generals didn't just fail to investigate these cases, they chose not to investigate them. They chose to take bribes and kickbacks and campaign donations. The police department here in West Palm Beach chose to take a donation from Jeffrey Epstein. The police and sheriffs and others in other cities and states chose to take donations.
Okay, we return to the studio to make sure that we are monitoring each and every event that pops up, and a new one has come across our live feed. This is a Frontier Airlines update. An individual was hit by a plane on the runway of a Frontier plane getting ready to take off. We reported on this yesterday, and now law enforcement and others are giving an update on the situation. Let's go live out of the Frontier Airlines update right now.
Thank you, Chief Thomas. I'm going to talk a little bit about safety at DEN. Let me say very plainly, Safety is paramount in everything that we do. It is paramount in the aviation industry in general, and it is definitely paramount here at DEN. After significant events or incidents such as this, or even incidents that do not rise to this, we conduct after-action reviews to identify areas for improvement, and we will do that here as well. As such, we will perform an incident analysis and an after-action review in the coming days. We have already started that, and they will include reviewing the ongoing investigation, including our perimeter security program. Safety is something that we take very, very seriously. In fact, we have received perfect scores on multiple FAA safety inspections, which includes validation of airfield safety and perimeter integrity. DEN's perimeter fencing meets TSA regulatory guidance. After the incident, we examined the fence as we do on a regular basis and found it to be intact in that area of the incident and surrounding areas. Our overall security approach is a layered one. DEN has multiple layers of security. We use technology. We conduct continuous perimeter fence inspections. We have security patrols. We have multiple tools deployed at our disposal to lower the likelihood or to prevent a security breach. Even so, it doesn't necessarily mean we can eliminate them all. Specifically in terms of the perimeter fence, we have 36 miles of fence line within our 53 square miles of airport property. Here, Denver International Airport is the second largest airport by landmass, second only to the airport in Saudi Arabia. Security officers and Denver police patrol the airfield regularly. We have closed-circuit television monitoring on our runways. We have a ground-based radar system that monitors our fence line and identifies and captures video and thermal imaging. Last Friday night, the ground detection sensors set off an alarm at this location at 11:10. DEN's operator on duty reviewed the alarm and identified a herd of deer just outside of the perimeter fence, very near to where the incident occurred. They did not initially see the trespasser. The camera view was alternating between the wildlife and the individual. There are some ditches in the area, so the person was out of view for a bit as well. And then just minutes later, we were alerted by the FAA of the person being hit. And so again, about 120 seconds or so, or 2 minutes, all of this occurred, a motion detector with deer outside of the perimeter fence and the trespasser. It took approximately 15 seconds for this person to jump over the 8-foot fence topped with barbed wire. The time between climbing over the fence and being struck by the plane, again, was approximately 2 minutes. The location of the incident is about 2 miles away from the terminal. Given the short time period, we were not able to intervene and prevent this person from reaching the runway. Since this incident, we have been asked, why don't you electrify the fence? Or why isn't the fence taller? Or why don't use razor wire instead of barbed wire? Safety and security, again, is always our top priority. We don't want our fence to be deadly. And even if the fence was taller, we believe a motivated individual could find a way to penetrate it. That is why we have many layers of security, which I previously mentioned. As I mentioned earlier, we will conduct, as we always do, an after-action review to better understand how this happened, what we can do to improve. We are always looking for ways to make improvements and ensure the safety and security of our facilities, passengers, and employees. Finally, some of you have requested additional video showing the trespasser jumping the fence. We're working to get that to you. For those of you who have already requested it through the open records request, we'll send that to you. For those who have not, please submit that request, and we'll add you to the list. Let me conclude by again thanking all of our emergency responders, the Frontier flight and ground crews, our airline partners for their professionalism and support. And let me also thank the United States Department of Transportation.
Okay, even with that video stopping before there is any contact, it is absolutely chilling to watch in a devastating set of circumstances for that individual and their family and friends. And obviously something that comes with a lot of questions, as you can see from listening into a portion of that press conference, and many still trying to get more information, video, and things of that nature about what is, again, that video is just almost difficult to watch even with it stopping before there's any sort of actual contact. And then you see the aftermath and the damage that was done, and then hear the people deboarding that plane. A scary, scary night for all involved, and a tragic night for one family out there. So that's a story that if there more information comes out as to why or how this happened, that's information that we'll make sure to get to you. In the meantime, we're going to take another commercial break. When we get back, we may go back to that press conference, or we may listen in on Pete Hegseth once again. Again, many live events happening right now, so we'll be right back with more. welcome back on this Tuesday late morning, really just about early afternoon, kind of in the middle there, as we have about 12 minutes left in the stream, and we still have so much going on live right now. We have the Epstein hearing still happening. We've spent a great deal of time with that today. We have the Hegseth budget hearing happening. We've been in and out of those budget hearings for the past 6 weeks. So we're actually going to go back to the Frontier Airlines update. We thought that press conference was coming to a close, but they are doing a Q&A right now. So we're going to listen in once again as they talk about the incident, the tragic incident that happened with an individual walking out onto the runway and getting hit and killed by a Frontier airplane. Let's listen.
That the actions of the Frontier pilot and crew were exceptional. And this could have been far worse. And so we are indebted to their professionalism, and we have communicated that to Frontier Airlines, and we will continue to do that. But this really shows the professionalism of pilots everywhere, really, that have to experience this.
Then can you address whether, we've all seen the video of the person walking on airport property. Is that video monitored in real time? Or is it checked periodically? What's the protocol there now?
It's monitored in real time. An alarm will go off, as I said earlier. An alarm did go off. It was complicated by, in terms of motion detection, by deer in the area, too, that were outside of the fence line. And the time that was elapsed between the breach and the accident itself was literally so quick, about 120 seconds or less, but the alarm did go off and it was monitored.
Do you have the technology in the cameras to determine if this guy was dropped off or if he walked that whole way? I know it's a investigation still, but do you have the technology to determine that?
Not that I know of. And looking at the video, and as Chief mentioned, there's no indication of a vehicle anywhere nearby, a bike, a car, anything. There is farmland to the east of the airport, and so I don't want to speculate on how this individual got there, but we will dig into that as well.
What's the response time normally for that part of the airport to get to that fence and stop someone who is trying to get onto the runway?
I hesitate to talk about the response time. That area was 2 miles away from the terminal, but that is sort of security, protocols, and I hesitate to talk about response time to an area.
I want to make sure I understand the timeline. So this motion detector was at 11:10?
Yes.
Approximately. Is that inside or outside the fence where that detector is?
I believe it's on the fence, right there on the fence.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said previously, if I wrote it down correctly, 11:13 is when he went over the fence?
Yes, 11:13, and then 11:15 we had impact.
So the motion detector was getting him before he came over the fence?
The motion detector was, yes, before or when he hit the fence or jumped over the fence.
Okay. I'm just trying to account for that 3 minutes between the motion detector and the time you said he went over the fence before.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Is
what
there
he was
anything
doing?
left on the fence from him? Any clothing?
I don't believe there was anything found from him on the fence. No, there's nothing found there.
Phil, we have a couple of online
Mm-hmm.
questions. Did the ground alarm detect Mott or the deer or both?
The ground radar system detected, I believe, both, and that motion detector it initially detected the deer, and then the person, I think, a little bit afterwards. But we'll set that timeline for you and send that out as well.
Thank you. And Doctor, I have a couple of questions for you. I'm just going to read this as is. Not to be graphic, but the cause of death, can you tell us if the injuries were sustained by the airplane's engine? And is this cause of death the cause of the fire inside the plane?
Good question. The cause of death was created by the engine of the plane, and then there was a fire following that impact.
So you've confirmed that Mr. Mott was taken in by the engine?
Yes.
Dr. McCormick, just to clarify on the finding of suicide as the manner of death, I guess, is there anything you can tell us about the evidence that makes you think it's that versus somebody that maybe was intoxicated or experienced a mental health issue that may not have intended to end their own life in this way, but wandered on to a place where it happened?
That's another good question. For manner of death, we're often asked what somebody may or may not have intended. And as a scientific investigation, we can't really know what someone's intent was. So the best way to determine manner is to evaluate the totality of the investigation, scene findings, circumstances, and history. And based on all of those findings together, we determined the manner of death to be suicide.
Okay, and can you say if you have any toxicology results in terms of the intoxication of drugs or anything like that?
We have collected samples and we'll send them for toxicology testing. Those results will be available in the autopsy report.
So if I can ask about the passengers. Yes. There were complaints that passengers took their luggage, and what was that about? And also, they also said that they were stuck on the plane longer than they wished.
Kind of tough for us to answer about what went on within the aircraft, but I will say that there's all kinds of warnings that if an emergency occurs, do not reach for your luggage, and so that is very true on any flight that you take, and so we are working with Frontier Airlines to determine what we can do as an airport to facilitate sort of a better evacuation. But I think it would behoove us to adhere to, those the guidance of flight attendants and all of that as we get on aircraft. Incident happened. Don't worry about your luggage, your carry-on, and all that. Do it in an orderly fashion and evacuate the aircraft.
Were they stuck on the plane a long time?
I don't have the exact time that they were stuck on the plane, but I do not think it was that long. But we can get that for you. We'll discuss it with Frontier.
Can you tell us how people were injured? It sounded like most of it was during the evacuation.
Yes, we understand that most of the injuries, 12 injuries, I believe, or 12 people that were transported to the hospital was a result of the evacuation.
So going down the slide and hitting each other? Or
correct.
Luggage?
Yeah, correct. It was the slide, different things like that. But again, 5 people were taken to the hospital. 4 have been released. I'm not sure about the remaining person that is still hospitalized.
Are you guys planning on speaking with Denver City Council and the Transportation Committee, and then moving forward, what potentially could collaboration look like?
Okay, as you can tell, an abundance of questions there for those officials as they try to sort through what is a strange and tragic story regarding the individual hit and killed by a Frontier airplane yesterday, I do believe. We reported on it yesterday for sure in our shows. Now, that'll do it actually for us here on Live Impact News. Live events going on throughout the day today. A really busy show for us. We appreciate everyone sticking with us for the duration of that show or for whatever portion you could watch. We really appreciate it, and we hope to have similarly busy days going forward. We want to make sure we can bring you all the news that we possibly can. For Connor Real, I'm Sarah Calloway. Reverse that, and we hope to see everybody tomorrow.